say the human soul weighs 21 grams. So then how much of that is fueled by creativity? How much weight do the elements that comprise this creativity hold? This is the show that welcomes those questions, and luckily we have the guests to answer them here today. Welcome to 21 Grams.
Yeah, we're live. 21 Grams, another episode, and I'm so happy that Mike answered my post. We had a guest lined up, it didn't work out, and Mike jumped in on it, and I'm super excited because this is a really cool topic to talk about, and to talk with somebody who I think is really good at it, and so I'm real excited about that. So first, Mike, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and tell everybody about yourself a little bit.
Hi, my name is Mike Feria, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina. This isn't where I'm from. I'm from South Florida originally, down by Miami. Pembroke Pines, Miramar. Miramar is like the city I grew up in. I always had a desire to do something in film or to do something in acting or something like that. But really, the thing that I wanted to do as a kid was I wanted to direct movies, because as a kid I saw so many bad movies. I was like, I could do better than this. I could do better than this. Why'd they do that for? Like being the judgmental jerk off that I am sometimes. And one day, just kind of out of the blue, I had this epiphany in my mind. I was like, I think I should write a book. And there were some background things that happened where, like I was at a job where I was in a creepy old warehouse that was built in like 1912. And it kind of would spook me out. And so some of my coworkers would realize that it would scare me, or that I was kind of creeped out about the place. So they went about like really going out of their way to scare the piss out of me. So they would take and they would like wrap loose fishing line around stuff and pull it off the shelf, like while I was in the room by myself. And I'm like, oh my God, there's ghosts, like this place is haunted as hell, and so like when you look this place up online, all you could find were obituaries of people that used to work in this old mill. It used to be an old textile mill, but by them doing that, by them like freaking me out in such a way, I gotta thank them, the bunch of jerks. But they really kind of pushed me toward getting something written down. And I started writing my first novel, which is called Passenger. I have it right here. This is my book. It's called Passenger. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and a couple of other different places. I think you can even get it on Walmart.com now. And so I just sat down and I started hammering it out. And my wife, when we first started getting ready, or when I told her what I was going to start doing, her initial response was, okay, honey, good luck with that. And I was like, okay. And so I did. That's what I did. But, this is my first novel. I wrote a second novel, which is a sci-fi fantasy. Mm-hmm. But it also has elements of horror in it too. Like there's necromancy, but there's also magic and stuff like that. So, but in this particular world that I built, it's not on Earth and there aren't any humans in it. So you have to change some of the lingo and stuff. So it's not actually called necromancy. They call it death dancing, or death dancers, as the casters, the ones who bring back the dead. And they don't just bring back like zombies. They can like listen through the dead trees and the dead grass. Wow. And stuff like that. Like they have eyes and ears everywhere. So it's like there are no secrets. But it also makes it difficult for main characters to like stay alive. I actually had a harder time keeping them alive than just killing them willy-nilly. I was like, man, if I make this too hard, like I'm gonna write myself into a closet, you know.
I'm curious. I'm curious. From you mentioning that you get scared pretty easily, and that people have noticed that, and they've kind of played with it a little bit. When did you know that you were able to scare people with what you write?
I think really it was my wife reading over my shoulder. Like, when I wrote my first couple of chapters, um, I was like, "Hey, honey, come in here, read my stuff, see what's going on." And it doesn't take this book very long to let you know that there's some insidious stuff going on. There's some bad juju happening, and some supernatural things. And so now, granted, when she read the first draft or whatever, like it was different than it is now.
Sure.
But when she sat down, she was like, "Oh my God, Mike, like this is really good. How did you learn to write like this?" And I was like, "Well, I paid attention in English class mostly, like, and so I just, and as I went, I learned more and more about the craft,
Mhm.
because my thing was I said to myself, Mike, if you keep on going at this speed, like, because I was making a lot of headway on it. If you keep on going at this speed, like, how bad do you want to rewrite this thing once you get to the end?
Mhm.
And the answer to myself was, I don't want to rewrite it at all. So
Mhm.
I went ahead and made sure that I was as close to being professional as I could be, because my dream was to be picked up and to be taken seriously as an
Right.
author.
So, what key element or device or idea did you find that helped you create a good scare?
Well, honestly, it was from being judgmental of other people's work, or other, like, I'm not a super huge horror reader,
Uh huh.
but I used to watch a lot of horror movies.
Right.
And there were some of these movies, like the first one was banging, it was really good. And then the rest was a stinking money grab, a lot of the times. And it
Hmm.
was like they tried turning a horror into a comedy, or something like that. And I'm like, but that's not what this was about. This was
Hmm.
supposed to be, so like there were things about horror movies that I didn't particularly enjoy. So I wanted to kind of do it my own way, because I'm like, okay, I am the master and commander of this ship. Okay. And I can go whichever way it can go whichever way I choose for it to go.
Sure.
So, the thing is about writing horror is that you can't say boo and expect to get a reaction from people.
Right.
They're like, what? Excuse me? Like, you can't jump scare people in a book. It's
Yeah.
it's not possible. These are words on a page,
Yeah.
you know. And so I was like, okay, so that doesn't work. And what also doesn't work is the word suddenly, suddenly. You know what I mean? So what I tried to do was I tried to build this growing tension of I call it looming creepiness.
Nice.
So like so that people are trying to guess what the next step is going to be, and maybe if I had followed my initial notes, they might have been able to figure it out what was going to happen next. But I always seemed, in the middle of writing, I always seemed to find something that I liked better along the way, and I would deviate from the playbook.
Mm,
And so even then, I was surprising myself.
nice.
So if I was like, whoa, okay, let's go this way instead, then there's really no way for people to tell where it's going to go, except that it just gets darker and darker.
Mm,
When I first started writing this thing, I didn't really want to categorize it as a horror novel. And the reason why was because I started eyeballing agents that I wanted to query. Okay,
Mm,
I didn't query them, of course, until I was done and I had it
sure.
polished and stuff. But I was doing a bit of homework, and I noticed that there were very few, in comparison to other genres, very few agents that were actually representing horror.
Mm,
I mean, like name your lot. Let's say young adult, fantasy, dark fantasy, high
romance.
fantasy, romance, all of this stuff. Everyone, there are a lot of agents
Yeah.
who are very for those particular genres. But as for horror agents, for if there were 200 horror agents, there's 2,000 romance agents. You know what
Right.
I mean? And you can't submit to other to people who are outside of your genre, right?
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to stick with that. So I tried to call it a thriller. I tried to call it a supernatural thriller,
Paranormal.
paranormal something something. But as I continued to write this thing and it just went deeper and darker, I went, there is no way in hell I'm going to be able to pass this off as anything
Mm,
other than horror. And I'm probably gonna butcher this a little bit, but there was a guy, you know who he is. I don't know why I'm like there was a guy, Robert Frost. He
uh-huh.
said he was the poet. He died back in the '60s, but he was a poet, and he said something along the lines of, "No tears for the writer, no tears for the reader. No surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader." Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly,
You got it
I
pretty right. That's pretty good. Yeah.
yeah, and it was. I think I might have gotten it backwards, but
Yeah. That's all
yeah,
right.
and
Same,
but
same idea.
I actually like I got to a point I was like, dude, you are what the hell's wrong with you, man? Like, why did you do that? But I try not to kill off characters just for convenience, right?
Mhm.
I don't just like I'm just like, oh, you're a problem. Get out of my story, and no one will ever talk about you again. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like it's not like the stereotypical horror movie type where a, a group of six friends goes into the woods and one and a half of them makes it out. And you know
Right.
that
Right.
from the very beginning. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man. So I just I am so proud of this thing. It makes my heart swell
That's
how
awesome.
well it did, you know.
Yeah. I'm curious for talking about characters. You know, how are you somebody who gets deep inside ahead of a character? And I'm kind of curious in that respect, if after the how you approach a character after the scare, when they've been scared or they're about to be scared and getting in their head a little bit. Are you manifesting your own fears in that respect, or is it a matter of having to kind of learn that skill and write around that idea?
Yeah, I mean, having character development and stuff like that is numero uno. Um, so I do a lot of it's third person basically,
Mhm,
but you can
mhm.
still get inside their head. You
Sure.
still get inside their head, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Like I need to get away either through their actions or through their minds themselves. That like they're praying to themselves while they're
Yeah.
like trying to drive their car away from this place or something like that. And like the not knowing what they just saw, the like some eyeless, soulless thing that was like staring into them or something. Like because like in this book, the demon does not care. The demon don't care at all.
Hmm.
It's like you're in church, that's fine. It's like throw holy water on me. That was rude. You know, like it's so it's like and is like a lot of paranormal stuff. It takes place and it's like relegated to a home. It's relegated to a specific person, something like that. This thing will follow you across an ocean. It doesn't care.
Wow.
And it has its goals. It has the things it wants. And it will manipulate the situation. It will possess who it needs to based on their guilt and their grief and what they've done in their lives and stuff. That kind of in a way opens them up to being demonically possessed, right? So the main focus is on a child who is growing. This book takes place over a number of years, but the demon has its sights locked on this kid, and it uses other people around him to manipulate and change the trajectory of his life to eventually get him to go into down a certain path of ruin.
Nice. How much of it is about getting a reaction versus moving the story along? Where would you ballpark the two ideas? Because a lot of times what happens with horror writers, especially, is they get in trouble because they become, let me do this scare right here, now, and I'm kind of curious how much you weighed the idea of getting the reaction versus moving the story along.
There were a couple of parts where I was like, this is a big part, and I want people to be paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wrote my book in a way that I didn't want people to speed read through it. I wanted them to take their time.
Kind of absorb it.
Yeah, I wanted them to really pick up what I was putting down. So, but it's not super complex reading, and I don't use a lot of big words to try to impress anyone. It's not like one of those boring classics that they used to make us read in school, but most of it was about getting the story, getting the story across, because one of the hallmark features of horror film, horror novels, one of the hallmark features is to focus on the gore and to focus on violence and stuff. So, and basically kind of what it's turned into is to where a movie really isn't scary. It's just really bloody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but let's take, for instance, a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That movie was pretty good. I liked it. It was scary and it was bloody as hell. And I was like, oh man,
and it had a story.
Yeah, and the story was pretty good. I mean, they did a good job with it,
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it's just like gore porn, and so I didn't really want to focus so much on the violence, even though there are some pretty violent parts to it that might make someone turn their nose up here or there, but I really don't linger on it very much. And so it's like, let's keep the story going, because at this point in time in American life, you have a very limited window to grab someone's attention and keep them there, because there are so many other options that people have. They have their PlayStation, they might even have an Xbox, they got their phone at their fingertips, there's TikToks to watch, and there's Facebook posts to get mad about, and there's all of these things that people can do aside from reading your paper, so give them something that they really could enjoy. That's what I really wanted. And I was kind of afraid that maybe parts of this book were a little too much, as far as the height, like how the graph just kind of goes and just goes up and up and up, and there's very few areas where it's chill. And damn, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Can you rewind it just a minute and let me know what I was saying?
You were talking about the difference between, creating reactions versus moving the story. But you were saying that when you're trying to move the story, you wanted to make sure you kept everybody's attention by making it reactionary. But you also the moments of chill you were trying to get into. You're starting to get into the idea of
Yeah.
when you're trying to chill it out. So.
Right. Well, I mean, some people, uh, they, oh yeah, I remember. So people, I was expecting people to think maybe it was too much, but
Yeah.
really, from the reviews and stuff that I've gotten from other people, they were more like, I want more of this. Like, and I'm like, y'all are crazy. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You like Lauren, my wife, okay, she has a pretty decent TikTok following. Her name is Laurie Ferrari Tarot over there, okay? And so she shills my book sometimes when she does her live interviews or her live feeds. And so some people bought my book through her. They're like, hey, and I'd like sign copies and stuff, and you know, I'd mail them out to them. I'm a friendly guy like that. And one girl messaged Lauren, and she's like, honey, are you okay? Is your husband okay? Like, blink twice for no. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. So, like, you know, but you would expect a guy like Rob Zombie to be just like the biggest psycho.
Right,
You know,
right.
like
No,
a
he's
dude,
the nicest
and
guy
like
in the world.
he's like a vegan, and
Yeah.
he's just got like he got his thing.
I've actually met and talked to the man before, and he reminded me a lot of Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
he was very just chill and like, yeah, man, whatever, you know, cool.
Mhm.
You know, he was not what you'd expect him to be, basically. But yeah.
Yeah, I got a totally different view of him because I watched him on the Joe Rogan podcast,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, dude, this guy's amazing. Like, he's so cool. Like, I would hang out with this guy if he'd hang out with me, you know? Like, hey, make my movie.
So building these characters to kind of get to this crescendos and scares and everything. What characteristics do you like to use that makes them good candidates to be scared?
I don't have a lot of heroics in this book. There's not a lot of like.
So cowardice.
There's a lot of cowardice. It's like how I make the characters relatable is I make them real.
Uh-huh.
I make them real, and I give them real emotions, real love, real disdain, real like, real love, real hate. All of these things, like all of the things that make us who we are as individuals, and then I mix and match it around. I killed myself a couple of times in this book because I like modeled characters after me. It's like, oh, what a nice guy, you know. Yeah, you know. So, but really, I have a lot of experience. I've met a lot of people in my life,
Yeah.
and I know I'm a pretty good judge of character and how people act and how people behave.
Uh-huh.
If one person runs into a burning building, you'll have 50 people standing outside going, oh dear, you know? So like, save the heroics. There are some times where it's either be heroic or you're dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like, I wanted them to be normal people trying to live a normal life in a suburb, which I just made it take place in Greenville, South Carolina, because I'm like, this is where I live now. I've been here for 14 years. A lot of authors like
right?
Yeah, they like writing books that take place in their town because it makes it easier.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Stephen King writes a lot of books about Maine, so
It's all about Maine, right?
Yeah,
The forest in Maine, Bangor, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wanted the characters to be believable, and I think that I did a really good job with that because really they're normal people and people who you didn't even know they had a dark side or whatever, and the demon gets in them, and then the demon uses them to fulfill whatever need or want it has, and then it leaves them, and they're like, and they're like covered in the blood of someone else, and they're like in the police station. They don't remember anything, and like, because there's like mystery, there's detective work, there is like a family that's under like physical and psychic attack, and there are the people who are friends of the family who are also being influenced. So I think one of the most proud moments in this book are the aha moments,
Uh-huh.
because like even when I didn't even expect it to turn out that way, right? So the aha moments are like really good.
And I would imagine too, there's probably moments you didn't think were aha that people have pointed out to you as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a particular scene that takes place in a bathroom, and the guy, he's been seeing the ghost of his friend that drowned when he was like
Ooh.
11 or 12 years old. They were swimming in a pond and his friend drowns. And but like there's like all different kinds, like you don't just get the main character's point of view, you get the mother's point of view, you get the main character Marshall's point of view, you get a psychologist's point of view, you get a detective's point of view, and everyone's trying to make sense of it in one way or another. And it all really starts to unravel, and once you get to about the
Like
middle
good
of the
horror
book,
would.
like it's all gas, it's all gas.
How conscious are you in creating scares when you're navigating through like tropes? And are you somebody who embraces tropes as being a horror fan, as somebody who knows horror really well? Are you somebody who really embraces the tropes, or do you kind of navigate around them to try and you try to look for different ways and new ways to scare people?
I'm glad you asked. I actually try to avoid tropes at every turn, because the reason why they're called tropes is because everyone's doing them, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's doing it. And, you know, if you're being a copycat of what other people are doing, then you're not going to have your own voice. You're not going to have your own style, because whether if you're unconsciously doing tropes, it can be a problem for you, because okay, an agent says, well, what's your book about? Well, a guy and a ghost fall in love. Bet you never heard of that one, have you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not knocking the paranormal romance. I'm not. But well, you know, like I actually created almost my own demon for this book. Okay,
Nice.
like I was like, okay, this, you know, like the stereotypical thing where you're backed into a corner, but you have this holy water that a priest gave you, and and you throw it on them, and they go, and the
Yeah.
skin
They
sizzles,
burn. Yeah.
yeah, and they're like, oh no. Or like, you know, they climb up the wall or something, and it's
Yeah.
really not like that. It's a lot more sinister, because you don't know who your enemy is.
Mm.
And this doesn't necessarily happen. What I'm about to say doesn't actually happen in the book. But if you could picture someone in your mind who you've known for 15, 20 years, who is like a father figure to you, like a brother, a best friend, something like that, right? And you, good dude, he's your best friend, he was your uncle or whatever. And one day you get a phone call, and then you turn on the news, and this person that you've known for 15 or 20 years of your life wiped out his entire family
Mm.
last night, you know, and you're like, oh my God. And so like when people are being like interviewed by the police or by the news people,
Mm.
you're like, people are like, I never saw that in him. I can't believe he did that. How could he have done this? He loved his wife, he loved his daughter, you know, and stuff like that. So like these and that was kind of one of those things that kind of like got my cogwheels turning, was like seeing the news, watching the
Mm.
news, and all the time you hear about the neighbors that are like, he was just a quiet, nice man, and he always waved to us when we were on our way to the store. I don't know
Sure.
why he did that.
Mm.
And so I kind of wanted to address that too, because Maybe. I mean, I'm not like trying to put this out there because this isn't a religious book.
Right.
Okay, it's not like where the whole thing is inside a house and you throw the water on it and you say some words and the thing goes away. And
Yeah, it's not
so
like an exorcism of religious faith or anything like that.
right. So and there are some intermingling stories, and everybody's story kind of comes together in a way, kind of like that movie Crash.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where like everybody has their own story, and then at the end, it all comes together. Of like, this guy's had a bad day, and that dude like is running from the cops, and this guy, you know, and like or something, and like intermingling of things, I think really adds a special kind of uh, different. It's different from a lot of other novels that I've read that are in the same genre, because a
Nice.
lot of them are, you know, it's the book starts A and then you go A B C D E F G, right? And I'm like A B C D F G H, you know,
Yeah.
but it all comes together. But you're going to want to pay attention, and I would discourage people from speed reading it because this book is heavy. And if you're not in the right headspace, I don't want to hurt you.
Well, you got some fans who were commenting. Rebecca says that cover still gives me the heebie-jeebies, and now watching it, she's now watching it from over your head, which is it's up in there in the corner there. And she says it'll be on sale the 26th, everybody. So
I'll let people know.
Yeah. And she says, I'm glad that I'm not the only one who loses my train of thought, but Anita says, and she says, nice guy, it's always bited in the horror. Yep. And Maddie DeGraff says, I love multiple POV. It makes the story more interesting at times. You know, along those lines, you know, having fans and having people come to you and tell you about scaring, how they were scared, or this did this to them, or, you know, that reaction that you got from one of Lauren's fans on TikTok. I'm curious if that's changed you, because you have had success with that. Has that changed your approach? Have you gone back to your fantasy novel and kind of reworked it a little? Because you did say that there's going to be horror elements in it. Did you rework that to kind of give it your panache, the style that you've kind of now probably are going to be familiar with and people are going to know you by? Did you kind of put a little bit more signature on the fantasy novel because of the reaction you've gotten from this book?
Well, I actually signed the contract for Scrivendar before this book ever actually released.
Right.
But there are some common themes. And the common theme that you might know me the most for is the loss of control, the loss of self-control.
Nice.
So that like someone else has the puppet strings in you. And so because when you're dealing in magic, let's say with Scrivendar, there is like death dancing, necromancy, and stuff like that. But there's also like, you know, spell work and stuff like that, enchantments, enchanted weapons, or whatever it might be. But there's always this thing where someone else can get you, you know, so you're not safe. You're not safe. And I think that and just the fascination, I guess, with death in general. I don't know why, but like you, if you were to read Passenger and then you were to read Scrivendar, you could definitely, even though they're in completely different realms of writing, I think you could probably still say that sounds like Mike Feria.
Yeah, I don't doubt that in the slightest. You have a very unique voice, so that's very cool. All right, you ready? You ready to do some rapid fire, Mike? I've got a few rapid fire questions for you.
I hope I have the answers.
I think you do.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
What character would you say of yours that you created for Passenger was the hardest to scare?
The hardest to scare, I would say probably the detective, because he has
Mhm.
the most rational mind. Okay. He's the one who's like, look, a lot of bad things happen. I've been on the force for 20 years and I've seen a lot of bad stuff. Like, you can't go in front of a judge and tell him that the devil made me do it. You can't do that. So he's the most rational one. But,
Nice.
He finds out some stuff too. And he's like,
Nice.
oh, this is the real deal.
Do you remember the first time you were ever scared reading or watching a movie?
Yeah. The first real horror movie that I watched when I was a kid was I think it came out in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, The Walking Dead. Or
Mm.
not The Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, or Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead. Okay.
Nice.
And my dad tried to put us to sleep. He's like, you guys can't watch this. You need to go to bed. And so I crawled up beside the couch, and I curled up in a ball beside the couch and watched the whole damn movie. And I don't know if he noticed me or not, but I sat out there and I watched a whole damn movie. And I remember for years after that, I would look out the window at night and I would be like, there's going to be zombies walking at the house. They're going to come through the windows. They're
awesome.
coming. And every once in a while, I'd look out the window and I'd see a damn person walking by in the dark. And I'm like, oh, no. But, of course, they weren't coming toward the house. They were just walking their dog.
What color do you most associate with being afraid or having fear?
I would say black, like the deepest, darkest black.
Nice.
Like if you were to turn a room pitch black and turn off every light and every little bulb, okay, to where you can't see your hand right here in front of your face, and then picture something that's even blacker than that, and that is fear. That is
nice.
Yeah.
Most iconic horror character for you?
Iconic horror character. Like as in like a horror
like Jason, hero? Freddy.
Oh, okay.
Most iconic to you?
I would probably say Leatherface. That guy freaked me out when that movie came out. We went and saw that movie in the theater, and I thought it was actually a true story because they said
it's based on a true story. But yeah,
is it really? Well, I know it's based on Ed Gein, the guy up in Minnesota or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I thought that what happened there was like the actual true story.
Oh no, it's just loosely based, I believe. So, what is your favorite?
Scared me when I was I was an adult by the time that movie came
out. That's okay. I appreciate you admitting that.
I don't know. I might have been like 18 or 19. I don't know. I can't remember.
It's fine. Things scare you. It's just the way it is. What is your favorite scare from your own book? What you can tell without you can just tell us the context. You don't have to tell us what happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's a moment, and I'd hate to give it away because it's like everyone tells me that this is the one, And there's a guy.
Well, give us some key elements then. Something that
he brushes his teeth with a razor blade because he thinks it's his toothbrush, and he's been possessed in such a way that the thing is manipulating even what he can see, and he's confusing things with other things, and he brushes his teeth with razor blade.
What's a movie that scared almost everyone but didn't scare you?
I don't know. Just name any Jason movie. It's like the first Jason. Everyone's like, oh my god, it's so scary. It's like, dude, what? I don't know. I mean, maybe if I'd have seen it when I was a bit younger, okay, it probably would have scared me more. But it wasn't like the hack 'em slash 'em that I thought it was going to be. I'm like, why is his mom the bad guy? Where's Jason? Why is he an adult when he died as a child? What happened? So it just it never really got to me. And then they started making dumb ones like Jason in Outer Space. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Who paid for this?
Jason
I
takes
mean, okay,
Manhattan.
don't let me like ruin it or whatever, but because I haven't actually seen Jason in Outer Space. Okay, so it might be the best movie.
No, it's
but
not
I
good.
have my doubts.
It's not good.
Bad horror movies made me want to write a good one.
Do most failed scare attempts turn into laughter for you? Do you find that you're laughing at them more than no?
Well, I don't know. I let me see. Do failed scared attempts make me laugh? Not really. It's more like a that was
What
cheap.
the hell?
That was cheap. I was like, how did the possum get in the locker?
So they make you mad
in this abandoned building. It was closed. He'd be dead. You know what I mean? Like that was cheap. Like you just did that to make me shit a little. And it didn't work.
What do you think? What do you think is more fun for you to write? Scares that cause a death or scares that don't?
Scares that don't, because there are so many things that you can do after the person survives. Okay, like in Scrivendar, for instance, I had a great time keeping my characters alive. I thought it was fun trying to keep them alive because the world is so dangerous. Like there are bushes and stuff that if you touch them, you'll rip your guts out because you're so itchy.
Nice.
Like you'll pull your eyeballs out of your head. So it like everything is dangerous. So trying to keep your characters alive on this adventure that's almost like the Rings, so kill this Death Dancer and his offspring. Like there's so many things that can kill them, and when they actually survive, it's like I can use you again, and sometimes like it's like they gotta die because like 9 lives, like you're out. But I think that keeping them around is more gratifying than just killing them at every boo.
Nice. Something that you researched that helped you create a scare.
I read a lot of articles. I can't tell you how many. I read a lot of articles. I read books that based in the horror genre. Watched a lot of YouTube videos is really what helped me out because
nice.
I mean
that's a rabbit hole.
Well, the thing is like while you're doing your research and stuff, there is like advice that you can take or leave. Take it or leave it. It's not going to make or break your story. Try to make it uniquely your own. But you don't want to take everybody's advice, because if you do that, you're going to be so mixed up and crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to follow everyone else's guidelines that you're not going to be you. And honestly, it can probably even discourage you from continuing on, because it's like, then the doubt starts creeping in. Like, oh, well, I don't think I could do it this way like they specified. I mean, that just doesn't fit in with my story. And then you start overthinking things and you start making enemies out of yourself in your own mind. And then before you know it, you might walk away from your work in progress and you may never go back to it.
All right.
So you have to be careful.
Yeah. One last question in the rapid fire area. Is there a line that you won't cross to scare someone?
I don't like using gratuitous sex or violence.
Okay.
I mean, there is sex in my book, but it's not like, like erotica. And there is violence, but it's not like over the top, like wearing someone's face or, hanging them by meat hooks and stuff like that. Yeah, I just, try not to go too deep into all that. And I try to get people's attention. I try to get them interested by really telling the story well. I think that's the key thing for me.
What do you feel like is the most challenging aspect of purveying fear in the written word for you? What did you have to hone in on it and kind of really work at to kind of get that fear going in writing words?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So creating a fear element, like creating something that scares somebody. Uh, you're doing it through written word, as you mentioned before. There was certain things you had to do to kind of like how to play with, building it and everything like that. Where did you feel like that was the most challenging element for you in creating something like a horror novel, or did you feel there was something else that was really challenging that you had to overcome, that you feel like really made ultimately would end up making this what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I just tried to do it the best I could the first time. It really kind of came easy to me because when I was writing Passenger, I was in a state of fear because I was really getting messed with hard because my coworkers were collaborating with each other, and and so like one would throw something over here and then another one would pull something down over there, but then they wouldn't even be in the room, and like
Yeah.
they were working together. So I don't know. I just really tried my best to be original and to make it hit home for people because honestly, like there are a lot of sad and lonely people in the world, you
Hmm.
know, and you don't want to like make them relive depression.
Right.
You don't want to make them feel terrible inside, but at the same time, like human nature is we're drawn to other people's suffering. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate thing. That's why we like watching fail videos of people falling
Yeah.
off the ladder.
Yeah.
I don't. I feel every bit of those videos.
Yeah.
Like, oh, change it.
Yeah,
You
they've
know,
never amused me either. It's that sick element. It's just like, I mean, it's not pleasant. It doesn't
no. It
it
used to
doesn't.
be funny when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I'm like,
Yeah,
that is horrifying. But
yeah,
like people are drawn to like the drama of the TV shows, the reality TV shows and stuff like that. It's like 45 minutes of a
yelling.
house full of girls cussing each other out and
Yep.
fighting over a man and da da da. And these shows, they have like the craziest outpouring of support. They're like, oh, rock of love or
Yeah.
whatever it was, and it's like, so people are attracted to dumpster fires, and I got a dumpster fire for you right here.
Yeah,
I
there
got
you go. As someone who grew up wanting to be in film and be a director or actor, or and studied film, especially horror films in particular, how much is when you're creating scares and you're creating moments, how cinematic for you in your own head is that? And are you looking at it as a cinematic event? Do you kind of want it to feel cinematic when you're writing it?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I really do. I Because honestly, I was a much bigger movie buff than I was a reader as a child.
Sure.
So, and growing up, even I watch more movies than I read books. I'm sorry, but I do read. Okay, but I read a lot of nonfiction. I get a lot of good, realistic information from reading nonfiction, and it translates well into fiction. Like one of my favorite books is this one. It's called The Gulag Archipelago by a guy named Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and it's about the the prison camps under Stalin and Nikita Khrushchev in Russia, and it is the most gut wrenching, heartbreaking book. But reading stuff like that, it really helps you translate and into really good fiction, because you can add a believability factor to it that I think that a lot of other things miss. But as far as movies, and I'm sorry for getting so far off
Oh,
task.
no, you're good. You're good.
This is how my brain works. I'm sorry.
No, you're
But
good.
yeah, when I was writing this book, I could see it all. I could see it all in my mind, and I tried to make it in such a way that the other people who were reading it, that they could see it in their mind too. That I wanted it to read like a movie.
Nice. I'm curious, uh, beyond the scares, beyond the horror element of Passenger, what do you really want people to resonate with this book? What do you feel like is the book saying beyond just trying to scare you and trying to be this horror novel?
That I'm not saying, because I'm not super religious and stuff like that, okay?
Uh-huh.
But there are things that happen in this world that are beyond our comprehension and our understanding, whatever they may be, okay? Whether it be like some kind of spiritual thing or something, like there is something going on that is beyond what we can see, taste, touch, and feel. And I think that by people reading this thing, that they can think of different instances that happened in their lives, or stories that they've heard, or these politicians
Mm-hmm.
that are really dark people,
Mm-hmm.
very sadistic people, and that you can see
And often they use
maybe.
religion as their veil.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so like maybe by reading this thing, you can see the parallels between this book and the real world.
Nice. That's awesome. I know you're really getting into your fantasy in Scrivendar, and you've got a world created there, and you're about to do a series basically with this idea. Do you though see yourself ever coming back to this world and writing again? And based on the reaction of the fans that you know of, have they kind of encouraged you to kind of come back to this world a little bit?
Yes, they have. Or yes, I have. And people have said like, "Where's part two? Like, I
Mm,
want more." Like you could have done more, right?
yeah.
But this book, I wrapped it up in a nice, pretty bow, and I like it the way that it is. And I don't really see how this particular book could become a sequel. However, I could write a completely different story it would be kind of like how American Horror Story does it.
Yeah.
Okay? How it's like you have
It's kind
between
of
one season
parallel
and the next, it's
university.
a completely different group of characters,
Mm-hmm.
different circumstances, different motives that the demon might have, how it's trying to manipulate and maneuver its way into and out of people's lives. So I definitely could see a part two. I was considering writing a sequel, and I was going to call it "She Says She Talks to Angels,"
Ooh,
but
nice. Great
I
title.
haven't. I haven't written, but like 2 pages of notes on it, and I walked away from it. But if people continue reading my book and they continue demanding it, I will do it, and I won't do it just for the moolah. I will do it to the best of my ability, because that's the only way I work.
So what can fans of Passenger expect with Scrivendar that you think they'll enjoy?
Um, Scrivendar is kind of like Elder Scrolls. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings type, but you got to understand that these are all alien creatures. They might be humanoid in one way or another, but they all have their own uh, let's say, genetic abilities. Some might see farther than the others. Some might be more inclined to magic. Some might be more nimble. Some make the best blades. Some make the best bows. So there's like a bunch of different races. Okay, you have like 5 main races, and then you have also like hybrids and stuff like that, like mixtures of races. And there's like racism in this world. So it's like they don't like each other, and but there's this tight knit group of a mixture of all these different races, of like 4 or 5 different races. And but like when they go into town, like people are treated bad, like even though they're heroes, and they're like the whole reason why your town isn't burned to the ground already from the last time a death dancer came through, and like they're like, get out of here, green skin, we don't serve you here, and stuff like that. So like there's a lot of like inside stuff that can still be relevant in today's modern society. And so there's that, but there's also like there's traditions and games and competition between these races and the people, or the aliens that exist there. And I think that people can still, even though it takes place on a different world, you can still see parallels between their world and ours, because I mean, in nature, like hawks fly together,
Yeah.
ducks fly together, I should say. Hawks don't like each other. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like, oh, racism is normal, racism is
right.
but it's like you can be like, man, that sounds a lot like our world too, and they're not so different from us, because it is a sci-fi fantasy, but it takes place in the Middle Ages. Like if it an alien world in their Middle Ages, like us and ours, so it's bows, crossbows, axes, swords,
Nice.
but also magic and necromancy and all of that stuff too. So I think people will appreciate it when it comes out.
When do you think it's going to come out?
Well, I'm past due. It was actually supposed to come out last week. It was last.
So I'm
week.
not the only one getting the cattle prod these days.
Yeah, I might need it. I might need a cattle prod, but I've ran into some roadblocks, because the first book went off without a hitch. The first book was like really good, but the problem that I'm running into now with book 2 is that it's too complicated. It's too complex. So it's like now, before it was like a band of heroes. Now it's armies. Now it's like commanders and like or whatever their rank structure might be. And so like, and you have all this infighting plus attacks from the outside. You have racial division, and you have this and this, and there's just so much to cram into these pages that it's almost overwhelming. And I've been slack about it. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, and keep track of that for everybody on social media. Where can they follow you at?
The best place to get in touch with me at is either on Facebook or through Twitter or TikTok as well. I kept my name the same. It's at Mike Feria Writes. It's all one word, or Mike Feria Writes. And I had a website, but the website was so complicated to use, and they overcharged me so much for a service that I am apparently too stupid to figure out. And so I canceled my website subscription, and I haven't started another one on an easier platform. So I hope that within the next couple of months, I'll have a decent website for people to look me up, because at one point at some point what I want to do is for people to be able to make orders for signed copies of my book so that I can mail it to them directly through my website.
Nice. Awesome. Well, it's going on sale on the 26th, as Rebecca reminds everybody. So go get Passenger. Thank you, Mike, so much for hanging out and answering my questions here on 21 Grams. I really appreciate it, man. It was a
I had a
nice
blast talking to
conversation.
you. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Well, we'll see everybody again soon. Thanks, everybody, for